This is Real Estate Talk Boston. Love having one of our longtime Boston Power players, Matt Montgomery from the Matt Montgomery Group in studio Compass. Thanks for stopping by, Matt.
Thanks, Chris. Thrilled to be here again.
You're in a really cool segment of the market out in the Newton Brookline area. It's interesting as you stay in and around the city. It's always crazy, really, no matter what time it is, whether it's spring or fall. What hurdles are you seeing in that marketplace right now?
Yeah, we are off to like the races in the spring market in Newton and Brookline, and especially in the market that's under $1.5 million, $1.6 million. It's kind of scary what's happened as values have risen consistently in the lower end of that market, and it's continued to be more and more competitive. We're seeing houses that just a few years ago would have been $1.2 million come on at $1.4 million or $1.5 million and trade at $1.6 million or $1.7 million. And it's creating a real frenzy sort of in the marketplace. And one of the big challenges that we're seeing this spring, which I think is even more so than I remember in past years, is process. You know, the top agents in Newton and Brookline have really worked to sort of slow things down a little bit. When a new property comes on and you know there's going to be 20 buyers for it, it's really tempting to sort of take the first or the second offer that comes along the first or second day it's on the market. And a lot of the agents don't understand that as a listing agent, it's our job to control the process. And we do it for a few reasons. So the first reason is because it's what's best for our client, right? The more people we can expose a really exciting house or condo to that we know there's going to be a lot of activity on, the better the chances are we're going to be able to find the best buyer for it. Right. And the best buyer isn't always the one who comes in on day one, and it isn't always the one even who can pay you the absolute most money for it, because you want the deal that is going to close. And you want to sort of make sure that you're educating your seller really well around who the buyer is. And if you take the time to sort of get to know who those 10 or 15 or 20 buyers that are going to offer on the house are, you can give that advice a lot better. We're seeing a lot of people sort of put a house on the market on Tuesday or Wednesday of the week and not really have a plan for how they're going to market it, how they're going to expose it, and when they're going to be looking at those offers.
That untangles the process right out of the gate.
It does, and it's hard not only for the buyers, it's hard for the agents, it's hard to be able to advise people, it's hard to be able to give people the information that they need about what's going to happen and when. And it also creates a sense of distrust between the buyers and the sellers. If a listing agent tells you that they're going to be looking at offers on Sunday unless they get something spectacular, well, what does that really mean? Like, does it mean that they're going to be looking at offers on Sunday, or does that mean it's going to be gone Thursday night and I need to leave work, I need to sort of come and see it in the dark even though I'm not going to really get a best sense for the house? And as a listing broker, I would always rather slow things down a little bit, while still capturing that early market momentum and being able to leverage it, but really giving people a chance, right? And giving people an opportunity to come see the house at its best. And even come see it a second time and really think about it. Because I want to make sure I'm selling it to the person who's really the best buyer for my client, the seller.
When you do that, you're laying out the process. The buyer's agent doesn't have to agree with it.
Correct.
But at least there's a process in place where they can gauge, and then the buyer's agent can manage their buyer.
Right.
They know what they're walking into. Where
they know what to expect. It's really clear. And look, we have a legal obligation to present any offer to our seller. But if you've coached your seller in advance to how the process is going to work, they'll understand. And, we had a situation a couple of weeks ago where we had a house on the market. It was a condo, around $1 million, about as inexpensive as you can get into our market for. And we had a lot of activity on it. And on Saturday, we got a great offer from somebody, pretty clean, way over ask. And the seller was really tempted. And we had to say, hey, look, we told people we were looking at offers on Tuesday morning. We need to stick to our word. We need to be people they can trust, that we're going to do what we say. And the person who's willing to pay you, $100,000 over ask on Saturday, if they've changed their mind by Monday,
they're not the buyer.
They're not the buyer. Right, exactly. And so guess what? On Tuesday, we ended up getting $30,000 more than we had on Saturday, and a cleaner offer from somebody else who didn't get a chance to see it until Sunday because they had been out of town. And it's really important that we do the best job that we can, sort of helping people understand clearly what's going to go on. And even if I don't agree with how somebody is handling process, I at least expect them to be clear about what their plan is, and the hardest part of all is when there isn't one and we're all just sort of trying to guess.
I'm gonna sit there and cringe when you see a certain age. You know that it's coming down the pike, and
you do.
And we talk about this all the time on the show: the importance of working with a real estate professional full time that's in that market and knows the landscape. This is a perfect example of why that is so important.
It is. It's a really great example of it, and the longer you've done this, the more deals that you do, the less the individual deal becomes a make or break on your career, and you're able to really sort of like look out for your client's best interests in a way that somebody who's new doesn't really understand, or somebody who's selling an expensive house with a huge commission on the other end is thinking, well, I just want to make the money, where an experienced agent who does this day in and day out can say, look, I want to make the money too, but in the process, what's really more important is if I do a good job with this and I manage it as well as it can be managed, not only am I going to make the money once, but I'm going to get a referral and I'm going to make it again and again and again. And that's really sort of, I think, the big difference between people who are sort of trying to figure out their way in the business and those of us who have been doing it for decades.
That's a great piece of advice, because here on the show we interview a lot of top agents in the area, and when I talk to other agents who are new to the business, a lot of times people are asking for advice. How do I crack that high-end market, right? Because it's not easy. You have all these shows on TV, $1 million listing, looks really sexy, selling these $1 million, $2, $3 million properties. It comes down to treating every transaction the same.
It does.
And not putting your...
my favorite story about how I sort of began to break into the high-end business was I had a young woman who was looking for a condominium in Brighton. Back in the day, it was probably under